Okay, hello everyone. Welcome back again. I'd like to start the next session, short talks and panel discussions of 5 distinguished invited speakers. So we have a roboticist, neuroscientist, philosopher, computer scientist. It's a very exciting interdisciplinary session, and I think Yasuo made a really good ice-breaking in the plenary speech. So I think we can really go crazy in the discussion here. So the way how we're going to go is that I let each of the panelists to give a 10 minutes introduction and what you think about embodiment, embodied intelligence. And then we can have a panel discussion afterwards. So I'm going to start with the orders, starting with Cecilia. You want to start sharing your screen, and then you can try.
I will. Here it is.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thanks a lot, Fumia. Thanks for organizing this workshop. I mean, it's really a great opportunity for our community together, and I'm sure we will have a lot of fun. It's really enjoyable, so thank you very much. So I just want to raise a few points about embodied intelligence in robotics. I'm a roboticist, which means soft robotics, basically. Joyce and Soror, I mean, I want to raise some points on this, on the trade-offs that we have to find. Most of us actually learned embodied intelligence from nature. And what we learned is that systems in nature are complex and they live in a complex environment. So we don't want to simplify them, but we observe a very fast and efficient behavior. So there must be some simplifying principle there to allow a complex system to be so efficient, so fast, a smooth behavior in a complex environment. And embodied intelligence is basically one of those simplifying principles. For me, we have learned, about embodied intelligence mostly from Rolf Pfeiffer, and we learned that behavior actually emerged from the interaction of the body with the environment and the tasks. So here is the simplifying principle. Many tasks become much easier if we can put this embodied intelligence into our robots. But where is it? Fumia already explained this very, very nicely before me. So this is a typical scheme that a roboticist feel comfortable with. Sensory system on one side, a controller processing the sensory information and producing motor commands for a mechanical system. But where is embodied intelligence? There it's this mechanical feedback from the environment. So this is what we want to be able to to use in robotics, but it means making use of body compliance, which is something that is usually fighted in robotics. So that's what brought us to soft robotics from embodied intelligence, actually. And in my personal research experience, I learned about embodied intelligence from a special animal, the octopus. If you observe the movement of the arm, you see that reaching is achieved with a bending in the arm that is propagated from the base to the tip. And we, almost by chance, we observed that the movement of a completely passive thing was similar in water if the morphology is similar, if the mechanical properties are similar, and if the environment is just the same. So we went into the biology a little bit more, and we discovered that actually the brain controls only few parameters for a movement that in the animal involved many muscles and many neural activation. So, very rudely, body matters and control is simplified in terms of control parameters. And we found something similar in the way the animals swim. So again, quite a complex system with a complex fluid dynamics, but with this specific morphology, this specific mechanical properties, it is quite simple to control because it is given by contraction. So again, body matters and control is simplified in this sense. And we found something even more interesting in underwater walking. So again, you see the animal moving and you think there are many muscles involved, difficult control, but in fact, the animal is just using 2 of the arms with a cyclic movement. So quite, let's say, simplified in terms of control. And we found something similar in crabs. When they run underwater, they have a long flight phase and they use only few of their legs. So again, body matters and control is simplified. But I say, okay, simpler behavior, and I mean less control parameter, but I'm not saying that we are simplifying our lives of roboticists because design becomes more complex. I mean, we have more parameters to set at design because we have to take into account many more things. I mean, not only the body of our robot, but the body, its interaction with the environment and the task. So what is the trade-off we have to find here in robotics? Actually, we learned that the very basic design principle for embodied agents is the 3 constituent principles. So we have to design the ecological niche, so the environment, the task, and then the body itself. And the passive worker example that was shown before is an extreme example of that. So here, here is where embodied intelligence works very well because it is completely passive. It is also where the ecological niche is extremely narrow. It works on this slope. So what is the trade-off between the ecological niche where embodied intelligence can work well and our need of roboticists to have robots that can perform multiple tasks, probably in multiple ecological niches, and maybe with some cognitive abilities on top of them, at least to switch from one to another. And as roboticists, as soon as we develop a robot, we want to control it. Even if it's a soft robot and we design it in a way to exploit embodied intelligence because this simplified control and so on, still, once we have the arm, we want to control it and we say, okay, but it's so complex to control soft robots. Actually, it is a little bit more complex because there are more transformations involved. It's not just the usual transformation between joint space and task space, but there is at least another intermediate step given by the deformation of the software arm. And also modeling those transformations a bit more complex. But of course, it is possible. So there are model-based approaches to control soft robots. And there are also model-free approaches based on learning. But again, what is the trade-off between, is then soft robotics a further challenge for robot control, or is it a solution for robot control because it embeds embodied intelligence? In my group, we especially use learning techniques for the control of soft robots, and we found that, for example, in this controller that is a dynamic, it follows a dynamic trajectory, and you see when it is disturbed externally, it tends to go back to the original trajectory. So it seems like it is attracted into a stable trajectory, and that reminds us about the fact that the agents tend to settle into attractors, which is actually part of the embodied intelligence. But I also think that so far we are, taking these interesting principles about embodied intelligence from nature. We also build our robots based on that, especially to show that, to verify the principles. But it is only when we are able to abstract the principles into mathematical models that we can finally design our robots for some intended applications. And they are our bio-inspired robots. We do not need to be just similar in shape or appearance to our original model. They will just embed the original principle and, in our case, the embodied intelligence in them. In our group, this is especially work by Marcello Callisti. He modeled actually what we found in the locomotion of the octopus and crab underwater. This is the U-slip. I'm not going to give details. He just added some parameters, some hydrodynamic contribution to the slip model. But we found again that in this way, the system tends to go into attractors, into self-stabilizing locomotion patterns. And also the model nicely put in relation this shape and the morphology of the robot with such self-stabilizing locomotion patterns. So again, body matters and control is simplified. This robot has a very simple control, in fact, and it shows very nice static and dynamic gates, and especially it can keep station with very low energy consumption, because control often goes together with energy consumption. And then with the model, we could even design a robot that is intended for an application, as I said. In this case, it's for sampling sediments on the seabed. But where are we in embodied intelligence? So what is the trade-off today between the embodied intelligence principles that we observe, that we learned, that we like, and that we try to apply in our robots, and their abstraction into mathematical description that can be used really as design tools for robotics. That's my final point. So I just give a summary of the points that I raised that I'm sure will be touched in this workshop. There are excellent scientists, colleagues working on all these topics. So the first one was the trade-off between, simplifying the behavior, the control, but having a more complex design for our robots. The other one is, how narrow can our ecological niche to implement embodied intelligence, but also having our robot doing more than one task, and how much soft robotics is, a problem or a solution for control. So a problem, a challenge for robot control, or instead a solution because it provides embodied intelligence. And finally, how far are we from a complete abstraction of embodied intelligence principles so that we can have design tools? Okay, just let me thank the people that work on some of the things that I presented. That was, of course, my work at the Biorobotics Institute in Italy, but now you can reach me at the National University of Singapore. Thanks.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Cecilia. I think this is a wonderful presentation. Very short, but the content rich. So